McMillanen. McLennan. Dang it. That one always throws me. These guys are amazing, amazing people, human beings, men in their own right. I had the privilege of spending 14 days with them this spring. Awesome men that love Jesus and choose to be here because they love Jesus, they love the wilderness, they love an opportunity to invest in young people. So I could go on and on about these guys and just their leaders over the last 20 days. Really fantastic men that I admire and trust. And so I just want to thank you guys for what you have served, how you've given of yourselves the last 20 days, just to invest and pour into these young men. And I'll turn it over to you in terms of what you all want to share, what kind of context, whatever. It's up to you, and we'll go from there. Thanks,
good.
guys.
Thanks, Andrew.
How's it going? So yeah, we had a amazing group of young men. Really, all of you parents should be proud of the young men that you represent here, that you've raised. As Andrew said, a 20-day course is a long course. There's some ups and downs, and some moments that definitely don't feel fun or enjoyable. But I'm really proud of how these young men overcame those challenges, how they stayed together as a group, how they worked through things. That was one of the things I really saw in our group really early on, was just the group cohesion and the way they bonded. And they were having so much fun. We never really had to encourage them to to interact or enjoy themselves, which sometimes with teens, right, they can be a little standoffish, a little, kind of aloof. And our guys, just immediately clicked. And if anything, we had to rein them in at times because they would get a little carried away. But, that's a good problem to have. And, what I will say about all these guys is they're very well-intentioned, they're very well-behaved, they have good hearts. It's like sometimes I've worked with teens for about 6 or 7 years, and, so you sometimes deal with the disrespect, the sort of trying to undermine authority, things like that. And all of these guys were just like awesome examples of, when Brighton or I asked them to do something, or we did have to pull in the reins a little bit, they immediately like, yeah, we got it. They would do whatever needed to be done. They would push through the fatigue or whatever, other factors were going on. And so I was just really, really impressed by all these guys. And it really does reflect the families and how they've been brought up, how they've been raised. And so just want to tell you guys, like, you're doing a good job. You have some awesome young men up here. And it was a pleasure to get to lead them for 20-some days. So that's what I'll say to start.
Yeah. So kind of echoing what Andrew said, I just want to thank you guys for the work and care that you've put into these young men. Spending 20 days apart in the wilderness, it's a removal, and any type of removal makes you realize how important the things you removed are. And so a 20-day community that we form in the wilderness reflects the community that they have back at home and the work and intention that you guys have put into their lives. And we saw that on this course, which is pretty amazing to see. So thank you guys for that. And then just to kind of set the context for the stories that these guys are going to share tonight. Over the last 20 days, they have entered a space that few enter into. Few go into the wilderness for 20 days. But even fewer than that enter it with bravery, willing to face things that they didn't know they were going to face. They had no idea what those 20 days held for them, and yet they went into it with a courage to face the unknown, to be willing, whatever came, to engage in it. And that's something that's rare in this world. They also went into it with a vulnerability. In our world today, men tend to think that they have to protect themselves, that they have to appear strong and appear perfect in order to be accepted. And these young men took a step back and said, we don't have to always be the strongest or always be able to accomplish everything. We can be vulnerable. We can come as ourselves. And in that weakness, there's actually strength in the community. And so they entered into a vulnerable space in these last 20 days. And they entered into the space with intention. Rather than just going out for 20 days and seeing what comes, living life in the moment with no thought to how it affected them, how it affected their future, how their past affected them. They went into it with an intention, going, I don't want to just be here for 20 days and then leave unchanged. I want to go into this space and I want to come out a different person, come out a better person. And so that intentionality, that bravery, and that vulnerability is what really formed this group, formed this community. And you're going to see that in the stories tonight. So I just encourage you to look for that, encourage it. So it's a really beautiful thing that I've seen.
Awesome. Well, I promised I'd go first. Yeah. So the leaders will kind of share a little testimony as well, kind of what the course meant for us. And so I promised the guys I'd break the ice since they might be a little bit nervous. So yeah, little for me. So I was a youth pastor for about 6 years, and I transitioned out of that role last June. And to be honest, the large reason I left was I was just burned out. I was just emotionally, spiritually, mentally exhausted. There's a lot of factors that kind of go into that. But working in a church, I love the church. The church is a valuable place, but it has some unique dynamics when you work in it, and some of the church politics and things that you can kind of get sucked into when you work there can be very difficult. And, so I knew I was sort of losing some of the vision. I never want to do ministry because it's a job. I mean, it's really a calling. It's a lot more than just a job or a way to, make ends meet. And so I knew I needed to take a step back, kind of regain some vision, just sort of recenter on the Lord and kind of be like, all right, what's next, God? And so this past year has been an interesting journey for me. And I do believe God, has brought me here this summer to work with Strom and Andrew Arnold and the other guys, Josh, and the Strom staff is just really a phenomenal group of people. And so it's kind of been a place of healing for myself. And working this course, working in a church, I've had plenty of experience working with teens, but not in a backcountry setting. And so this was definitely new dynamics. And I love the backcountry and I love the outdoors. And so it was kind of over this past year, it was like, well, what if I combine my desire to impact young people's lives, reflect Jesus, and be in the backcountry as much as possible. What if can I combine all those things? And you can. So for me, the course was really, there was a lot going on internally as I was just sort of stepping back into this space and, kind of some of those fears of when you step out of something, out of burnout, kind of refacing those things. So that was some of the internal things that I was, going through. But I'd say this course, and even just tonight, one of the things I enjoyed about working in a church is you got to know the families as well as the teens that you were working with. And, working with these guys for 20 days, a little over 20 days, it was always like, oh, I'm curious what their families are like, or they talk about sisters or brothers or parents. And, so it's been really rewarding even just tonight to put some faces to names. And, I've met a few of you all on drop off, but to see more of you and meet more of you. And, Jesus says, we find our lives when we lose it. And it's very easy to, and obviously what he was meaning there was, when we give away our life and we don't try to hold everything tight and live in this sort of selfish mindset, we find our lives when we lose it for the gospel, we lose it for Jesus, and we lose it in serving others and building others up. And that's certainly not always that's not always easy, and that's not always sort of a glorious, everything is so fun to always lose your life, right? I mean, there's a lot of times it's like you're dying to yourself, but there's a lot of joy in that, and Jesus says you find yourself, you find your life when you do that. And so for me, this course, working with these young men, like I've already said, just great young men, hilarious. I mean, we have some true comedians on this course. We laughed so much where, we were crying at times. And some of our dinners were, close to 4 hours long because the dinner was always like the clown around time. And, but so many good memories, and looking at the slideshow again is just remembering some of those things. And so for me, it was really kind of this time of remembering the joy of investing in young people, remembering the joy of, seeing transformation, seeing change, and also seeing how they sort of reintegrate back into families, back into lives back home. Obviously, I won't necessarily get to see that. Maybe we'll stay in touch with these guys, but trust that this idea of transference, transferring what they've learned in the back country, what they've experienced, transferring it over into the front country. I trust these young men are going to do it and do it well. And so that's kind of, for me, that's been what God's been doing in my life on this trip, is just kind of it's like a restoration a bit, a reminder of, hey, yeah, this is something that I have a passion for, that I believe God's called me to, and is rewarding, and it can be fun. It has its challenges, right? As really anything meaningful in life is going to have challenges. And so it has challenges, but the joy, that's set before you, the reward, and the experience, doing it together is worth it. And so that's kind of the reminder for me. It was a reminder of a lot of things. And again, privileged to work with these young guys and get to share a lot of good memories and laughs with them. So I will step away. If somebody else, maybe Wilson's the next guy up.
Okay. I'm a little nervous, so yeah. I came on this trip. I really wanted I love the outdoors, and I wanted a way to escape from the everyday drag a little bit. So I came on this trip as a way to kind of get away from what I've been experiencing lately, and it really helped a lot. And I really found myself in a lot of different places. I've always struggled in my faith. I don't really have a faith really. So it's hard to know or see if God has really done something on this trip, if he had a hand in it. But I have had I've found a lot of things about myself. So I know, so on my solo, that was one of the most impactful parts of the trip for me. I discovered a lot of things about myself when I was just alone. I decided, one of my biggest things was, I decided when I get home, I'm going to quit vaping, because that's something I've been struggling with lately. And so when I get home, I'm going to quit. And that's going to be a hard decision, but this trip has really opened my eyes to that. And so, and also something that I want to change when I get back home that I saw during my solo, is I thought about my relationship with my parents, and how I've treated them and how I need to change that. And so I want to work on my relationship with them when I get home, so I can have a better relationship with them and connect with them better than I have in the past. So my favorite part of this trip was definitely the climbing. Definitely something, because I really enjoy climbing, but I didn't know how much I loved it until really Brighton really opened my eyes to how much I liked it. And so it's just something I love so much, and I want to get into back when I go back home. I have a climbing gym back home, so I want to get into that. The belaying and trusting other people with my life, really, because I'm used to the auto belay where it's the little machine pulling you up. That was really, it was really crazy, but it felt good because it really helped me get to know these guys a lot better, and just kind of put my life in their hands, and it really helped build the community for me, at least. This is a great group of guys. I've really found some friends here, and it's meant a lot to how much I've connected with them. And another thing I learned about myself is when I feel like my body's about to quit, or I'm mentally about to quit, I can push myself farther and push through that, and go through the pain and go and make it to something. On the peak attempt, I was dying. It was really hard, and so I just needed to push myself through to get to something that was beautiful, which was on top, the view, which was crazy. There was a glacier and just peaks everywhere. You could see the Tetons. It was worth it. And so it was great, because I learned I could push myself through pain like that. And I'm really glad that I went on this trip. It really helped me find a lot about myself. So thank you.
Okay, so I'm Hayden, and I went. Oh. Do I have to look up and talk to it? Okay. So I'm Hayden, and I went on this trip. My brother, he's sitting right there. He went on this trip 3 years ago, and he said he had a good time, and he experienced God in many ways, and I felt like I had the same close experience. But I had a lot of fun with these guys. They've they've helped me through a bunch of hard things just through this trip. And I experienced God on my solo like a pretty good amount. Like like I just felt like he talked to me and he said like you're stronger with me. Like you're not alone. And there's a couple of lessons that really stood out to me, and one of those was actually Andrew Arnold's. It was one of his. It was Wild Wilderness, and it's just why we go out there. It's because like Jesus, even like when he was out there, he fasted for those 40 days, and it was just like how he got through that, like the breakthroughs with Satan and stuff. So I had a lot of experiences like that. So yeah, that was good. And another one was I beat myself up a lot when I'm at home, and we did the rock. What is it called? The rock burdens, and I felt like I needed to like just throw the rock away of beating myself up because I do that a lot. And I got one more thing. Another thing that I kind of had in the back of my mind when I threw the rock was I'm a people pleaser, and I really miss. Yeah, I just really want to cut that out because I know that God is the really only. That's really all I got.
All right, so my name's Brandon. The first thing that like struck me when I got on this course, not necessarily, it just kind of hit home, is what Andrew and Brighton said. They said like what you put into this is what you're gonna get out. And so I came on this course to get like a closer relationship with God, and I definitely got that. And there's like many different things that happened that like helped with that. Some of these were just being like my prayers were answered. Some of them was just making great friends with these guys and whatnot. So one of my mains one was Kai's story. During Kai's story, we just kind of told our life story, but throughout that, God like put some images in the clouds that were very distinct, and like that was like the first time in this trip that I really saw God and like what he was doing. Another time was like day 3 in the wind was the hardest day. There was 7 miles, lots of elevation gain, off travel. All of us were dead by the end, and I just like asked for strength and courage to make it through because I was definitely struggling physically and mentally. And so that was one. And then towards the end of the trip, my foot started swelling up pretty good, so I just asked God for healing. Andrew prayed for me. And like that next day, my foot was still hurting, but it was a lot better, and I was able to make it through. Some things that I've like learned, like lessons I've like learned throughout this trip, is like one of them like I guess both of them I've always really known, but like God's like with you throughout, like no matter where you are in life, like what you're struggling through. Like I've known that throughout kids, but I've like childhood. I've never really experienced that, and so like that was one that was this trip, was just he's always there when you need him. And the other is like everybody needs rest. Like my dad, he runs an organization and it's all about rest, and so like I've always like same thing as this other one, I've like always known about rest, but like I've never really experienced like why I need it or like the really like great importance of it. And so like it was day 4. Day 5 was our solo, so it's kind of like in that time where I realized like you need rest from everything, whether it's hiking, friends, family, whatnot. Yeah.
Alrighty. Hello, I'm Kai. So why I came on this course was, I feel like most of my life I've been living, a religion rather than a relationship. So that was one of the big things that I was looking for when I came on this trip was, rather than, just going through the motions and doing like checking off a little box because I did something, I figured out that I needed a relationship with God rather than a religion. So that's why I came on this trip. And I would have to say, I really experienced God on my solo because, we took time and we were spending just time by ourselves and time with God. I really enjoyed that. But I thought back over the previous part of the trip where we had done the rock climbing, we'd done some days of hiking, it was pretty hard and stuff. And I wrote something down, and it's about rock climbing because that's something that I struggled with because I was pretty nervous for that, and that was one of the things I was very scared of, was putting trust in other people. And so I wrote this. I said, Jesus is like the belayer and the rock wall is like life. It's going to be difficult, some parts harder than others. Sometimes you'll slip and fall, but he's there to catch you. He never makes a mistake. He's the perfect belayer. When you make a poor or a bad choice or a mistake, he's there to catch you and help you and encourage you through it. You'll have to take the step and keep moving forward and make the decision to keep climbing up. He's there for you and always wants to see you succeed. And when you can't find your next hold or step, he will guide you to it or through it. So, yeah. And then some other lessons I learned was I learned how to be open and vulnerable to this group of guys. A lot of them went before me when I told my story. That's something I really struggle with, is telling my story and trusting other people with it. So just each of them and all their stories just really helped me out, helped me share my own experience. And so I learned to trust and be open and vulnerable on that. I've also learned, like Wilson said, day 3 of the Porcupine Pass, that was pretty hard. It was super steep, and we were all really feeling it and struggling. But, we got to the top of that pass, and the view was just amazing. So I learned, that I can push myself through hard times and hard places, and the reward is pretty awesome. So, yeah. That's it.
Hi, my name's Will, and initially I really did not want to come on this course. It really wasn't a choice, and in the end, I'm just so grateful to my parents for sending me here. It's one of the greatest 3 weeks of my life, and I'm just so grateful to all of SRAM and everyone. One of the biggest things I learned on this trip was trust. Similar to Kai's experience climbing, I came on this trip with the mindset to not touch a climbing harness because I had a great fear of heights, and over time I was encouraged